Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the BCP Licensing Subcommittee. I'm Councillor Flagg, and the first item on the this morning's agenda is to seek nominations for a chair for the meeting. Members?
Can I nominate you for chair?
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
And I'd like to second that, please.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman-Law. Item 2, apologies. To receive any apologies for absence, I think we're all present and correct this morning. Declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest for this morning's meeting?
None from me, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
None here, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman-Law. Can I ask the officers just to run through the housekeeping, please?
Thank you, Chair. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council's website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair in case of disruption. For those in the room, please note that if there is a fire alarm, please exit the building in the way of your nearest assigned fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of the building in Bourne Avenue. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off your microphones and turning your volume down completely on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you, Sinead. Item 4, protocol for public speaking at licensing hearings. The protocol for public speaking at licensing subcommittee hearings is included with the agenda sheet for noting. Item 5, exclusion of press and public. In relation to the item of business appearing at item 6, the subcommittee is asked to consider the following resolution at the hearing when dealing with the representation from Trading Standards Appendix 4 of the report. That under Section 14.2 of the Licensing Act 2003 hearings, Regulations 2005, and with regard to the Section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that the public interest in withholding the information outweighs such interest in disclosing the information, and that involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1, 2 and 7 in part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act. This will come into play after the police have made their representation. Moving on then to item 6. The licensing authority has received an application for a new premises license for the premises known as Westover Express 45 Westover Road, and the matter is brought to the committee for determination. The licensing authority has received 2 representations, so this matter is brought before the licensing subcommittee for determination. I will now ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their role. I am Councillor David Flagg and chair of the member of the subcommittee.
I'm Councillor Lawrence Williams and represent Littledown and Iford.
I'm Councillor Chapman-Law and a member of the licensing subcommittee.
Thank you, members. We also have with us this morning Councillor Anne Filer and Councillor Judy Richardson, who are reserve members. They are not required to participate as all members are present. We also have Councillor George Farquhar, who's obviously observing the meeting this morning. Can I ask those around the table just to confirm their presence, please? Can we start with Mrs. Sarah Rogers?
Yes, good morning, Sarah Rogers, Principal Licensing Officer, BCP Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Joanne McNamara, Legal Advisor to the subcommittee today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Sinead O'Callaghan, Clerk to the subcommittee today.
Morning, Jill Holyoake, Democratic Services Support.
Thank you. And just for the record, we also have Jess McGlynn joining us this morning. He's only joining us up until the point that we move into exec session, and he's observing on behalf of the legal services on work experience. For the applicant, please.
Good morning, Chair, Councillors. I'm Philip Day from Lacey Solicitors, and I'm here to represent the applicant who sits next to me, Mrs. Alina Kadir.
Those objecting to the application, Sergeant Gosling.
Good morning, Chair. Sergeant Gareth Gosling from Dorset Police Drug and Alcohol Harm Reduction Team.
Thank you. Trading standards.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. My name is Katie Attridge, Trading Standards Officer for BCP Council.
Good morning. My name is Hayley Browning. I'm the Principal Trading Standards Officer for BCP Council.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Would it be possible to identify yourself, please? Oh, beg your pardon. I've got my short range glasses on this morning. Nice to see you, Councillor Martin. Right, members, before I run through the procedure, please may I check that all persons have been given notice of their intention to speak have been identified, and any person who wishes to withdraw a representation or wishes not to speak has been identified. If there are no comments, I will take this as correct. I will now explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking for the hearing as follows. The public session during which parties have not asked not to refer to any exempt information. The licensing officer presents the report. Questions of the licensing officer by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. The applicant will make their application. Questions of the applicant by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. Dorset Police make their representation. Questions of Dorset Police by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. We will then move into exempt session. Trading standards make their representation. Questions of trading standards by all parties present, members of the subcommittee to go first. All parties will be given an opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude. The subcommittee will deliberate in private with the legal advisor and clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. I will now ask all parties to confirm agreement on the proposed procedure or make representations. Mr. Day?
I'm content with that, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mrs. Kadir?
Yes.
Yes.
Sergeant Gosling?
Yes, I'm content. Thank you.
Miss Kate Attridge?
Yes, I'm content. Thank you.
Miss Hayley Browning?
Also content, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Sarah Rogers?
Yes, thank you.
And last but not least, Mrs. Joanne McNamara.
That's fine, Chair. Thank you.
I'm glad you said that. Finally, please may I remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information which they have already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chair, and there will be no cross-examination of parties. I will now ask the licensing officer to present the report. Mrs. Rogers.
Thank you. An application has been made to permit off sales of alcohol from 8 AM until 11 PM each day of the week within a convenience store located in a mainly retail and residential area of Bournemouth Town Centre. Dorset Police and Trading Standards, as responsible authorities, have made representations against the application as they believe that to grant the application would undermine the licensing objectives of the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and the protection of children from harm. The applicant has offered 2 additional conditions, an amendment to the delivery condition offered to mediate with the police for consideration. Details of these were in the supplementary evidence circulated yesterday from Mr. Day. There were no representations from any other person. Should this application be granted and the applicants fail to operate in accordance with the licence and any conditions attached to it, they will be aware that any of the responsible authorities or any other person may request a review of the licence at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rogers. Do members have any questions at all for the licensing officer?
Not at this stage, thank you.
Thank you.
Not at this stage, Chair.
Thank you, members. Can I now call on Mr. Day to make your presentation for the application, please?
May I ask Mrs. Rogers a question?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Day.
You mentioned in your report the Public Spaces Protection Order. Can you just assist the committee by confirming how much of the council's area is actually covered by that PSPO?
I don't believe I mentioned it in my report.
You do. You refer to the council statement of licensing policy, in particular paragraph 19.5. In cases where representations are made against applications for off sales of alcohol for premises that are in areas where public spaces protection orders are in place, and then you talk about two others, the licensing authority may not support such applications and may refuse depending on the evidence presented to support the representations.
I'd like to check and get back to you. The area.
Mrs. McNamara, please.
It may assist. I was the legal advisor in relation to drafting of that PSPO, so it may be something that I can answer if it assists you, Mr. Day. It covers most of the wards in BCP, apart from a couple on the periphery. I think it doesn't cover Walkford and another one sort of up towards Broadstone area, but certainly in the central areas there is that PSPO in place.
It covers Christchurch, Bournemouth and Poole town centres entirely.
Yes, it would do, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Nothing else.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Would you like to make your presentation on behalf of the applicant?
Indeed. I'm going to be mercifully brief. I'm mindful of your policy and what you've just said about not repeating anything that's been put in written representations. You will have had, I hope, and had an opportunity to read the two representations that I submitted yesterday, one of them for public consumption, the other not for public consumption for reasons that you've already alluded to. It refers to the trading standards evidence. If you've had an opportunity to consider those, then I don't really want to add anything more at this stage. Other than to say that with regard to the submission that I've made regarding the relevance and validity of the position adopted by trading standards, and I'm sure you'll take legal advice with regard to that, if you accept the submission, then this case will be considerably shorter, and it may well be that you wouldn't even need to go into private session, and we would simply deal with the evidence that is adduced by or on behalf of the police. My client and I are here to assist you regarding any questions that you may have or with regard to anything that requires further clarification. But for the moment, I propose to simply adopt, but without repeating, all that's been said in my written representations and invite you to ask us questions or move on to hear from the police. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Do members have any questions of Mr. Day at all? No? No, thank you. Is there any others in the meeting this morning would like to ask any questions at all? No. Can we just ask the question, is the premises currently trading but without an off license? Yeah, thank you.
For how long?
How long have you had it?
About a year now, a bit more than that.
About a year.
Yeah, 12 months.
And with your client being involved in the business.
Yes, if you look at my written submission, then that will explain to you her involvement. This is the one that is below the line, the trading standards one. So I need to be a little careful about what I say. But certainly the Westover stores, which is the subject of this application, that's hers. The other premises, I'm not going to refer to them at this stage, but I've dealt with that in the written submission.
Thank you, Mr. Day. If there are no further questions, may I call upon Sergeant Gosling to make a representation, please.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair. Along similar lines, hopefully you've had the opportunity to digest the supplementary evidence that I submitted late last week. All I'd like to emphasise really is that that particular area of town is a work in progress. There's been some really good progress made, which you will note from the illustrations that I provided within the report. But as Hannah states, there is still a lot of work to do. And indeed, with the support of BCP Council and the newly formed town team, which brings together a lot of different agencies to tackle the various issues of antisocial behaviour and crime in the town centre, it is anticipated that we'll continue to make good progress in that regard. Our concern is that with this premises in this location, that effort will be undermined. And essentially, there are, whilst it's not an issue for this committee to determine whether there are enough, because we don't, of course, have a cumulative impact policy in force within the town centre, but there are sufficient premises throughout the town. However, the addition of a premises along Westover Road would cause a particular issue. And I'm available for any further questions that you might have.
Thank you, Sergeant Gosling. Members have any questions? Any questions at all for Sergeant Gosling?
Yes, if I may. You refer in your evidence to the YMCA hostel. Are you suggesting that that is an alcohol addiction recovery service?
Without sort of knowing the full details as to who's in there at any one time, I am aware that there are people within the YMCA who are dealing with very complex issues, many of which are often associated with alcohol. So they are effectively recovering from alcohol issues.
Well, I'm sorry, that wasn't with respect to the question. Sorry, sir. That wasn't with respect to the question. I asked whether, in your view, if you're able to answer it, and if you can't answer it, then please say so. It falls within the wording of the policy, alcohol addiction recovery activities. It's a hostel for the homeless, some of whom, have problems.
But my understanding is that there are various other services also offered within the YMCA around education and rehabilitation, and some of that will likely include resolving complex issues such as alcohol addiction.
Okay, thank you, Sergeant Gosling.
Can you help me with what I suggested was something of a contradiction in the evidence that you've provided? Because PC Gribber, I hope I pronounced her name correctly, has said over the past year we've had reports from Westover Road of an increase in street drinkers, beggars, rough sleepers and shoplifters, whereas in your supplementary evidence with regard to levels of crime and antisocial behaviour over the last 12 months, you said through the effective use of police resources and the support of our partners in the community, the level of reporting has reduced significantly. and you've very helpfully produced a couple of your little maps with the hotspots, showing that the hotspots are very considerably less than they were. So which of you is correct? PC Gribber is going up, or Sergeant Gosling is going down?
Sergeant Gosling?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to clarify that point. With regards to crime and disorder reporting, there is often a discrepancy between what's actually reported to police through routes such as 101, 999 and online, and also what's being, if you like, anecdotally reported to officers that are on the ground speaking to the members of the public whilst on patrol. And it's very interesting to get Hannah's perspective on that as somebody who is patrolling on foot day in, day out throughout the town centre, often working late shifts, and who has a really good understanding of what is truly happening on the ground. So in order to be as transparent as possible, that's where I have presented the illustrations, which shows that the levels of crime reporting have gone down. And that's really good. It's a really good measure of satisfaction within the public. However, of course, Hannah quite rightly identifies that there's still problems that we're trying to tackle, and that's information that she's receiving on the ground.
Thank you.
Then can I ask you about the statement of Rukan Taki, who's the Community Safety Accredited Officer? He talks about a period of some 5 months from January through to June of this year, 31 incidents on Westover Road, 5 of which are drug or alcohol incidents. In other words, 1 a month. How does that compare with, let's say, Horseshoe Common or other parts of Old Christchurch Road, where we all know is a hot spot for antisocial behaviour and alcohol-related crime?
Apologies, I don't have that information with me.
Sergeant, with the greatest of respect, you've been a sergeant and a licensing sergeant in Bournemouth for a number of years. I'm not asking you to give me figures, but in terms of incidents, 1 alcohol/drug-related incident a month in Westover Road, isn't that extremely low compared with other areas of town, such as Horseshoe Common, Old Christchurch Road and the like? Boscombe even.
Again, I think that there is a distinction to be drawn between the CSAS officers and the police. Carry out very similar functions with regards to tackling low-level antisocial behaviour and crime, but unfortunately they do have different reporting mechanisms, and that's the records that they have. But unfortunately, I don't have a comparison to draw between their records of, for example, what happens in Horseshoe Common or elsewhere in the town.
So, Sergeant, your objection is based, if I can summarise it, on the specific location of these premises, and an assertion that whilst things may be getting better in terms of the number of reported incidents, etc., that to put an off licence in this location, albeit a very small one, is going to make the situation a lot worse. Now, I'm inviting you to point me to specific evidence as to what the starting point is. How bad is it at this bit of Westover Road? I mean, it's not really that bad, is it?
Again, progress is being made, and it's really good that through the partnership working with the local authority and the town team, we are making really good progress with regards to improving the area, reducing the levels of crime and disorder. But as I stipulated at the start, there's a lot more to be done, and it's our feeling that this would undermine those efforts significantly.
There's no, thank you, Sergeant Gosling.
Sorry, there's no cumulative impact policy in place, and in fact, you've gone so far as to say that there isn't any evidence to support a cumulative impact assessment for this part of Bournemouth. Isn't that right?
That process is underway at the moment to assess whether or not there is enough evidence. As it stands today, there isn't the evidence to support cumulative impact policy within the town centre, and hence why there isn't one.
So there is therefore a presumption of grant unless somebody can produce evidence that to grant this application would undermine one or more of the licensing objectives. So can you just point me to the evidence that demonstrates that to grant this license would undermine the prevention of crime and disorder objective? Where's your evidence?
The evidence is that of the CSAS officer and from PC Greiber, who patrols the town centre day in, day out, and has a really in-depth understanding of that area of the town. Coupled with the illustrations with regards to the progress that's been made, which we're really proud to be achieving. The location being opposite Bournemouth Lower Gardens, where we need to do specific patrols during particularly the summer months and other festive periods throughout the year. It is very much our view that the introduction of an off licence in that area would be to the detriment of those efforts.
Okay.
And obviously the committee will look at that evidence that you've provided in your written statements.
Can you follow me? Are you familiar with Asda Express, which is not too far away from this location? Petrol station.
I'm not.
It's at the top of Bath Hill.
Okay. Oh, the former ESSO, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just for clarification, they've recently had an application which was dealt with by the committee. I'm sure that's where you were going, Mr. Day.
Yes, it was granted.
Thank you.
Okay. And has that caused any additional problems in the locality to your knowledge?
As I've just been reminded by my fellow councillor, we only granted the licence a month ago. Sergeant Cosley?
Yeah, I would like to focus on this license. It's this premises license application, and see what to assess each one on its merits. I think to not do that would take us off all over the place.
Right. Thank you, Sergeant Cosley. Councillor Williams.
I'm interested in Lower Gardens, you mentioned. There's been a lot of problems in the Lower Gardens, which is for the purpose of today, bang opposite Westover Road. Can you elaborate a little bit for us?
Yes. Unfortunately, the Lower Gardens, as welcoming and beautiful as they are for the vast majority of people, unfortunately, there are significant levels of crime and disorder that continue to occur. The police, together with our partners, are doing everything that we can to reduce those issues. So that is also sort of through diversion tactics and trying to create more opportunities for the youth. But unfortunately, we do continue to suffer issues in those gardens, particularly the hedged area towards Westover Road. And that continues to be an issue which we're planning now with regards to patrols throughout the summer period to make sure that we can improve the trust and confidence of those using the gardens, encourage more people into the gardens, and then more importantly to discourage those intent on causing harm and encourage them to go elsewhere or to stop their behaviour. So there is still an awful lot of work, as you rightly point out.
Without giving numbers and things, would you say a lot of these are alcohol related, or is it a mixture?
The feedback from the officers that are conducting the patrols is that on the vast majority of occasions, they are seizing alcohol from the young people and others that are involved in the issues throughout the gardens. It no doubt, I don't think it's the only issue, but it's certainly a significant contributory factor in those problems. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Are there any further questions?
Yeah, just one final matter. Again, I'm going to be very careful how I put this. You will have seen the trading standards representation. With regard to the applicant, Mrs. Kadir, the police have no reason to object to her being the holder of a licence or her designation as the DPS. Is that correct?
In respect, I have to be very careful about how I word it. There are no grounds that I can put forward to you today in relation to that.
Right. Thank you. Then I'm going to leave it at that, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Are there any further questions from members at all? No? Right. I would then at this point like to move into exempt session, and I will run through the wording just so that everyone present is aware. In relation to the exempt information being presented, the subcommittee is asked to consider the following resolution: that under section 14.2 of the Licensing Act 2003 Hearings Regulations 2005, and with regard to section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business on the grounds that the public interest in withholding the information outweighs such interest in disclosing the information, and that involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 1, 2 and 7 in parts 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act. And I ask members, are we happy to move forward with that? Yes. Thank you. Unanimous. Can I now ask the clerk if they will confirm when the live streaming has stopped, please?